The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark metal mountain. Its shadow fell across Earth's orbital station, blocking out the sun for several minutes at a time. Commander Lee Nara stood at the observation deck, watching the alien vessel through the reinforced windows. She had seen many things in her 20 years of military service, but nothing quite like this. The ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Its surface was covered in strange markings that seemed to glow with their own light. Smaller ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Lee Nara counted at least 50 of them, each one still bigger than Earth's largest military vessels. "Commander, they're requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Park beside her. His voice was steady, but she could hear the nervousness underneath. "Grant it," Lee Nara replied, "but keep all weapon systems ready, just in case." The alien delegation arrived 2 hours later. They walked through the docking tube like they owned the place. Their leader was tall, nearly 8 feet, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His uniform was covered in medals and symbols that probably meant he was very important back home. Behind him walked 6 other aliens, all carrying weapons that hummed with energy. The leader stopped in front of Lee Nara and looked down at her. His eyes were completely black, without any white parts. When he spoke, his voice came through a small device attached to his neck. The words were in perfect English, but they sounded cold and mechanical. "I am Admiral Keth of the Vorthon Empire," he said. "I speak for the Galactic Council. You are the representative of this planet?" Lee Nara nodded. "Commander Lee Nara, Earth Defense Force. Welcome to our station, Admiral." Admiral Keth made a sound that might have been laughter. "Defense Force? How amusing. We have already seen what your planet considers defense." He gestured to one of his officers who activated a holographic projector. The air above them shimmered, and suddenly they were looking at moving pictures of Earth. But these were not the beautiful scenes Lee Nara expected. Instead, she saw alien soldiers fighting with Earth's animals. The first image showed a group of alien warriors facing a lion. The great cat roared and charged, but the aliens simply pointed their weapons and fired. Beams of blue light struck the lion, and it fell to the ground, unconscious. The aliens stood over it, looking proud of their victory. "Your apex predator," Admiral Keth said with contempt, "defeated in seconds." More images followed. Aliens fighting tigers in what looked like a zoo. The big cats leaped and snarled, but they moved slowly, like they were not used to real fighting. The aliens dodged easily and knocked them down with their energy weapons. Then came scenes from an aquarium. Great white sharks swimming in circles, confused and trapped, while alien soldiers in underwater suits captured them one by one. The sharks seemed smaller than Lee Nara remembered from nature documentaries, and they did not fight with the savage fury she expected. "Your ocean predators," Admiral Keth announced. "Also pathetic." The hologram shifted to show forests and jungles, aliens marching through what looked like national parks and nature reserves. They encountered bears, wolves, and other dangerous animals. But in every scene, the Earth creatures seemed confused and unprepared. They fought like animals that had never faced a real threat. One scene showed a massive grizzly bear rearing up on its hind legs. It was impressive, standing nearly 10 feet tall. But when the alien soldiers surrounded it, the bear seemed unsure what to do. It had probably lived its whole life in a protected area where humans fed it regular meals. When the aliens fired their stunning weapons, the bear fell over like a giant teddy bear. "Your land predators," Admiral Keth said. "Weak and slow." The images continued for another 10 minutes. Aliens defeating crocodiles in nature parks, aliens capturing eagles and hawks that had never learned to fear anything, aliens overwhelming packs of wolves that seemed more interested in running away than fighting. In every single scene, Earth's animals lost. They fought, but they fought like creatures that had lived safe, comfortable lives. They were strong, but not desperate. They were dangerous, but not deadly. Finally, the hologram disappeared. Admiral Keth looked down at Lee Nara with what she assumed was a smile, though it was hard to tell with his alien features. "This is the mighty Earth we heard so much about," he said. "This is the planet that the Galactic Council wanted to approach with caution. Your legends spoke of monsters and demons, of creatures so fierce they could tear apart starships. Instead, we found oversized house cats and swimming lizards." His officers made sounds that were definitely laughter now. They pointed at Lee Nara and spoke in their own language, probably making jokes about how weak humans were. "We conquered your entire ecosystem in 3 days," Admiral Keth continued. 3 days to defeat every dangerous creature on your planet. Our preliminary forces encountered no real resistance. Your animals fled or surrendered when faced with superior technology. He stepped closer to Lee Nara, towering over her. "Now, we understand why your species has never expanded beyond this single world. You are afraid of your own planet's wildlife. You hide in your cities and space stations, while creatures you call dangerous roam free. But we have proven that you're dangerous. Creatures are nothing more than simple beasts." Admiral Keth spread his forearms wide, as if embracing the entire solar system. "The Vorthan Empire has conquered over 1,000 worlds. We have faced creatures that breathe fire, monsters that swim through molten rock, predators that hunt in the vacuum of space. Compared to those nightmares, your Earth animals are like children's toys." Lee Nara listened to all of this without changing her expression. She stood straight and calm, her hands clasped behind her back. When Admiral Keth finished speaking, she waited a few seconds before responding. "Is that so?" she said quietly. "Yes," Admiral Keth replied with confidence. "Your planetary defenses are conquered. Your apex predators are defeated. The Galactic Council now claims this world for the Empire. You will surrender your military forces and prepare your population for relocation." Lee Nara nodded slowly, as if thinking about his words. The alien officers stopped laughing and watched her carefully. Something in her manner made them nervous, though they could not say what. Finally, Lee Nara looked up at Admiral Keth and spoke in the same quiet, calm voice. "Cute," she said. "Those were the indoor varieties." Admiral Keth stared at Lee Nara for a long moment. Her words hung in the air like a challenge he did not understand. Indoor varieties. What did that mean? His officers looked confused too, glancing at each other with uncertainty. "Indoor varieties," Admiral Keth repeated slowly. "Explain yourself, human." Lee Nara pressed a button on her wrist communicator. "Captain Park Minho to the main conference room, please. Bring the ecological files." While they waited, Lee Nara gestured toward a large table surrounded by chairs. "Please, Admiral, have a seat. I think you might want to sit down for this conversation." "Admiral." Keth remained standing, his forearms crossed. "We do not need to sit. We need your surrender." "Of course," Lee Nara said with a small smile. "But first, let me show you something interesting about those creatures you defeated." Captain Park Minho arrived 5 minutes later. He was a shorter man with graying hair and thick glasses. He carried a data pad and looked nervous around the tall aliens. but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Commander, you wanted the wildlife containment reports?" "Yes, Captain. Admiral Keth here was just telling me about his victories over Earth's dangerous animals. I thought he might like to know more about what he actually fought." Captain Park activated his datapad, and a new hologram appeared above the table. This one showed the same lion from Admiral Keth's recording, but now there were numbers and text floating around it. "This is Leo," Captain Park began. "Male African lion, aged 12 years. He lived in the Central City Zoo for his entire life. Fed twice daily with pre-prepared meals. Received regular medical care including vaccinations and dental work. Never hunted for food. Never fought for territory. Never had to survive in the wild." The hologram rotated, showing the lion from different angles. Text appeared listing his daily routine, his medical history, his behavior patterns. "Leo weighed 400 pounds, Captain Park continued. "A wild male lion of his age would typically weigh 550 pounds. Leo was also slower than a wild lion because he never needed to chase prey. His muscles were softer because he never had to fight other males for dominance." Admiral Keth's confident expression began to change. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you didn't fight a lion, Admiral. You fought a very large house cat." The hologram changed to show the tigers from the zoo. Captain Park pointed to each one as he spoke. "These are Siberian tigers, all born in captivity, all fed regular meals by human keepers. The largest male here is named Boris. He weighs 600 pounds. A wild Siberian tiger would weigh up to 800 pounds and be 30% stronger." More text appeared around the tigers, showing their daily schedules, their medical treatments, their behavioral conditioning. "These tigers have never killed anything larger than the chunks of meat we throw into their enclosure," Captain Park explained. "They have never fought for survival. They have never experienced hunger or fear or desperation. They are essentially very big, very dangerous pets." Dr. Kim Hanna entered the room at that moment. She was a marine biologist with short black hair and intense dark eyes. She carried her own datapad and looked eager to speak. "Commander, I heard you wanted information about the aquarium specimens?" "Yes, Doctor." Admiral Keth was impressed by his victory over our great white sharks. Dr. Kim activated her datapad, and the hologram shifted to show underwater scenes. The great white sharks from Admiral Keth's recording appeared, swimming in circles in what was clearly a large tank. "These are great whites from the Pacific Marine Research Center," Dr. Kim said. "All 4 specimens were born in captivity. They have lived their entire lives in a controlled environment with regulated temperature, filtered water, and scheduled feeding times." She pointed to the largest shark in the hologram. "This female is 15 feet long and weighs 2,000 pounds. She has never hunted live prey. She has never migrated across oceans. She has never experienced the deep ocean environment that shaped her species." Admiral Keth was no longer standing straight. His 4 arms had dropped to his sides. "How large do wild great whites grow?" Dr. Kim smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "The largest confirmed wild great white was 21 feet long and weighed over 5,000 pounds. But there are unconfirmed reports of specimens over 25 feet long." The hologram changed to show sonar readings from deep ocean surveys. Massive shapes moved through the water, too large and too fast for the scanning equipment to track clearly. Wild great whites are also faster, stronger, and much more aggressive than captive specimens. Dr. Kim continued. They are apex predators that have survived virtually unchanged for over 400 million years. They have eaten dinosaurs, Admiral. They have survived multiple mass extinction events. She paused and looked directly at Admiral Keith. The sharks you fought had never even seen blood in the water. Captain Park took over again, bringing up images of the bears from the nature preserve. These grizzly bears lived in Yellowstone Protected Area. They were accustomed to seeing humans every day. They associated humans with food because tourists often fed them illegally. When park rangers needed to relocate problem bears, they used tranquilizer guns. The hologram showed the same grizzly bear rearing up, but now with additional information about its background. This bear had been tranquilized and relocated 16 times in his life. He was used to being shot with sleeping drugs. When your soldiers hit him with stun weapons, his conditioned response was to fall down and take a nap. Admiral Keth, finally, sat down heavily in one of the chairs. His officers remained standing, but looked increasingly uncomfortable. Wild grizzly bears are different, Captain Park continued. They are solitary predators that can run 40 miles per hour and climb trees, faster than a human can run on flat ground. They can smell blood from 18 miles away. A truly wild grizzly has never seen a human and would treat any intruder as either prey or a threat to be eliminated. Dr. Kim pulled up more ocean data. The same principle applies to all marine life. The creatures you encountered in our aquariums and marine parks have been domesticated over generations. Wild orcas travel in family pods and hunt cooperatively. They can coordinate attacks over dozens of miles. Captive orcas swim in circles and perform tricks for fish. The room fell silent except for the humming of the holographic projectors. Admiral Keth stared at the data scrolling past, his black eyes reflecting the blue light. Finally, he spoke in a much quieter voice than before. "Where are the wild ones?" Lenara stood up and walked to the observation window. She looked out at Earth, blue and white and beautiful in the distance. "Still out there, Admiral, still wild, still free." She turned back to face the aliens. "The creatures you fought were the ones we keep contained for everyone's safety, including ours." Admiral Keth sat in stunned silence for several minutes after the presentation ended. His officers whispered among themselves in their alien language, their voices filled with worry. Finally, the Admiral looked up at Lenara. "Even if what you say is true," he said slowly, "it changes nothing. We have superior technology. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Wild animals cannot stand against plasma weapons and energy shields." Lenara nodded thoughtfully. "You're probably right, Admiral. Your technology is very impressive." She walked back to the control panel and pressed several buttons. Warning lights began flashing throughout the station. "Unfortunately, your demonstration of that superior technology yesterday caused some problems we're just now discovering." The main display screen activated, showing a map of Earth. Red warning symbols were appearing in various locations across the planet. More symbols appeared every few seconds. "What are those markers?" Admiral Keth demanded. "Containment breaches," Lenara replied calmly. "It seems your orbital bombardment demonstration damaged several critical facilities." Captain Park stepped forward, reading from his data pad. "The Deep Ocean Research Station in the Mariana Trench lost power when your ship fired those warning shots near our satellites. Their containment systems went offline 12 hours ago." Dr. Kim looked up from her own device, her face pale. "The Antarctic Research Base is reporting similar problems. The seismic activity from your ship's engines disrupted their cryo-storage units." More red symbols appeared on the map. Lenara watched them multiply with growing concern. "And it looks like your energy weapons left some kind of electromagnetic interference in our atmosphere. It's affecting monitoring systems worldwide." Admiral Keth stood up quickly. What exactly was being contained in these facilities? Before anyone could answer, a communication alert sounded. The voice that came through the speakers was panicked and breathless. "This is field researcher Choi Dae-hyun calling from Amazon Station 7. We have a situation down here. The biocontainment grid is failing. The deep forest sensors are going crazy. Something big is moving out there. Multiple somethings." Lee Nara activated the communication link. "Choi, this is Commander Lee. What's your status?" "Commander, thank God. We lost main power 6 hours ago when those alien ships passed overhead. The electromagnetic pulse from their engines knocked out our entire monitoring network. The automatic barriers that keep the deep forest zones sealed are offline." The voice paused, and they could hear strange sounds in the background, deep roaring noises that seemed to come from multiple directions at once. "Commander, the creatures we've been tracking for the past 50 years are on the move. The ones from the unexplored zones. They're coming toward the research station." Admiral Keth grabbed Lee Nara's arm with one of his 4 hands. "What creatures? What unexplored zones?" Lee Nara gently removed his hand from her arm. "The Amazon rainforest covers over 2 million square miles, Admiral. We've explored maybe 10% of it. The rest is too dangerous for human presence, Doctor." Kim pulled up new data on the holographic display. It showed a cross-section map of the Amazon basin with vast areas marked in deep red. "These are the restricted zones," she explained. "Areas where our satellite imagery shows large-scale movement. But we've never been able to send research teams. The few drone surveys we attempted never returned. The red areas on the map were enormous. They covered thousands of square miles of jungle that had never been touched by human civilization." "We know there are creatures in there," Captain Park added. "Big ones. Our seismic sensors pick up footsteps that register on earthquake equipment. But we've never had direct contact." The communication from Choi Dae-hyun crackled to life again. His voice was even more frightened now. "Commander, I can see them through the fence. Oh my God, they're huge. The trees are moving like something. The size of a building is walking through them. And there's more than one. I count at least 6 different heat signatures." Strange sounds came through the speakers. Deep bellowing calls that seemed to shake the station's equipment. Then came other sounds, like massive trees being snapped in half. "The perimeter fence is down," Choi reported. "They just walked through it like it wasn't there. Commander, these things are bigger than the research building. What do I do?" Lee. Nara looked at Admiral Keth, whose blue-gray skin had turned a sickly pale color. "Choi, activate the emergency beacon and evacuate immediately. Head for the extraction point. We'll send a rescue team." "Copy that, Commander. But I don't think we're going to make it. They're surrounding the station now. I can feel the ground shaking with every step they take." The communication went silent. Dr. Kim was frantically checking her ocean monitoring systems. "Commander, we're getting similar reports from the Pacific Deep Sea Station. Something very large is rising from the ocean trenches. Multiple contacts, moving toward the surface." She turned to face Admiral Keth directly. "The creatures down there have never seen sunlight. They've evolved in crushing pressure and total darkness for millions of years. We've only caught glimpses of them on our deepest sensor probes." Captain Park was reading urgent messages on his data pad. "Reports coming in from Alaska, Siberia, the Canadian wilderness, and the Australian outback. All the remote monitoring. Stations are going offline, but before they lost contact, they reported massive movement in the restricted zones." Admiral Keth was now visibly shaking. "How many of these creatures are there?" Lee Nara shrugged. "We honestly don't know. We've spent the last century building barriers and monitoring systems to keep them in the deep wilderness areas. Our entire civilization is built around avoiding contact with them. More emergency alerts filled the air. Voices from around the world reported the same thing. Ancient creatures emerging from places humans had never dared to explore. Things that had lived in the deepest parts of Earth's wilderness for millions of years. Dr. Kim looked at her readings with growing alarm. "Commander, the ocean sensors are showing massive displacement in the deepest trenches. Whatever is down there, it's big enough to cause tsunamis just by moving." Admiral Keth collapsed back into his chair. "This is impossible. No planet can support creatures of that size." Lenara smiled grimly. "Admiral, you've been traveling through space for how long? Thousands of years? And in all that time you've never found a planet quite like Earth, have you?" The Admiral slowly shook his head. "There's a reason for that," Lenara continued. "Earth is older than most inhabited worlds. Life here has had more time to evolve, to grow, to become something beyond what exists anywhere else. The creatures you fought yesterday were the small ones, Admiral. The safe ones." She gestured toward the map, where red warning symbols now covered most of the planet's wilderness areas. What's waking up now are the real monsters. The emergency alerts kept coming. Every few minutes, another monitoring station went silent. Another research outpost lost contact. Another barrier system failed. Admiral Keth watched the map of Earth turn increasingly red with growing horror. Marine. Commander Oh-Ji-Won burst into the conference room without waiting for permission. She was a tall woman with short military-cut hair and the kind of scars that came from real combat experience. Her uniform was still wet with sweat from running through the station corridors. "Commander Lee, we need to evacuate all civilian populations from the coastal areas immediately," she said, breathing hard. "The things coming up from the ocean are beyond anything we prepared for." She activated her own data pad and new images appeared in the hologram. These were not the controlled zoo footage from before. These were shaky, panicked recordings from emergency response teams. The first image showed a massive shadow moving beneath the waves near the California coast. The shadow was longer than 3 aircraft carriers placed end to end. As they watched, something broke the surface of the water. It was not a shark or a whale. It was something that had no name in any human language. The creature's head alone was the size of a city building. Its eyes were yellow and glowed with their own light. When it opened its mouth, rows of teeth bigger than subway cars became visible. The recording ended abruptly when the emergency helicopter filming it was pulled down into the water. "That's just one of them," Commander O said grimly. "We're tracking at least 12 similar contacts along the Pacific coast alone. The Atlantic is showing even more activity." Admiral Keth stared at the images with his mouth hanging open. That cannot be real. Nothing that large could survive in Earth's oceans." Dr. Kim looked up from her monitoring equipment. "Admiral, Earth's oceans are deeper than most planets are wide. The Mariana Trench goes down 11 kilometers. We've only explored about 5% of our ocean depths. The pressure down there is over 1,000 times stronger than surface pressure." She pulled up cross-section images of the ocean floor. Anything that evolved to live at those depths would be built to withstand incredible forces. Their bones would be denser than steel. Their muscles would be like hydraulic systems. The hologram showed sonar readings from deep ocean sensors. Massive shapes were rising from the deepest parts of the ocean floor. Things that had lived in crushing darkness for millions of years were now swimming toward the surface. The electromagnetic interference from your ships disrupted the deep ocean monitoring. Barriers, Dr. Kim continued. Those barriers weren't just for research. They were warnings, sound barriers that told these creatures to stay in the deep water. Commander O switched the display to show land-based reports. It's not just the oceans. Our ground forces are pulling back from wilderness areas worldwide. The new images were even more terrifying. Massive trees were being pushed aside like grass as something enormous moved through the forests. The camera shook as huge footsteps thundered past. In one brief glimpse, they saw a leg thicker than a redwood tree, covered in scales that looked like armor plating. Siberian Wilderness Patrol lost contact with their entire northern division, Commander O reported. Their last transmission showed tracks in the snow, footprints 60 feet long and 20 feet wide. Whatever made them was moving in packs. Admiral Keth's officers were now openly panicking. They spoke rapidly in their own language, pointing at the holographic displays and making gestures that probably meant they wanted to leave immediately. "How is this possible?" Admiral Keth whispered. "How can creatures this large exist without your civilization knowing about them?" Captain Park stepped forward with historical data. "Admiral, your people have been traveling space for thousands of years. But Earth has been supporting life for over 3 billion years. That's 1,000 times longer than your entire civilization has existed." The hologram shifted to show evolutionary timelines. Life on Earth has survived 5 major extinction events. Asteroid impacts that destroyed entire continents. Ice ages that froze the planet solid. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades. Images flashed, showing the aftermath of ancient disasters, creatures that had adapted to survive in conditions that would destroy most worlds. The things emerging now are the descendants of creatures that lived alongside dinosaurs, Captain Park explained. But they're not dinosaurs. They're what came after dinosaurs, what evolved to be bigger, stronger, more deadly than anything that came before. A new emergency communication crackled through the speakers. This voice belonged to a fighter pilot, and the sound of jet engines roared in the background. "Command, this is Eagle Squadron. We have visual contact with multiple large contacts over the Canadian Rockies, requesting permission to engage. Commander." Oh, grabbed the communication device. "Eagle Squadron, describe your targets." "Command, I don't know how to describe this. They're flying, but they're not aircraft. They look like dragons, but bigger than our planes." "One of them just flew through a mountain, Command. It didn't go around the mountain. It went through it." The sound of something enormous roaring came through the communication system. It was so loud it made the speakers crackle with static. "Command, they've noticed us. They're turning toward our formation. Oh God, one of them is bigger than our entire squadron. It's opening its mouth and... Is that fire? Command, it's breathing actual fire." The communication went silent, except for static. Commander O looked at Admiral Keith with grim satisfaction. "Your orbital bombardment woke up the things that sleep in mountain caves, Admiral. Creatures that went underground during the last ice, age, and never came back up. Dr. Kim was receiving reports from ocean monitoring stations around the world. Commander, the Pacific Deep Trench sensors are showing massive displacement events. Whatever lives down there is coming up fast. The pressure waves alone are going to cause tsunamis when they reach the surface." Admiral Keth stood up shakily and walked to the observation window. He looked down at Earth, which no longer seemed like the peaceful blue and green world he had seen before. Now it looked like a sleeping giant that was starting to wake up. "How do you live with these things?" he asked quietly. Lee Nara joined him at the window. "Very carefully, Admiral. We build our cities in safe zones. We monitor the wilderness constantly. We maintain barriers and warning systems. We respect the fact that we share this planet with forces beyond our control. She pointed to the continents below. Human civilization exists in the spaces between their territories. We've learned to live around them, not to fight them. Admiral Keth turned to face her with desperate eyes. But surely your military can stop them? Your weapons, your technology? Lenara shook her head slowly. Admiral, we've never tried to fight them. We've spent our entire history learning how to avoid fighting them. On the display screens around them, more red warning symbols appeared every minute. Ancient predators were emerging from deep forests, underground caves, ocean trenches, and mountain peaks. Earth's true ecosystem was waking up after centuries of careful human management. The creatures you defeated yesterday were our pets, Admiral, Lenara said softly. What's coming now are our gods. Intelligence Officer Shin Yunho rushed into the conference room carrying a communication device that was crackling with alien voices. His face was pale with excitement and fear. Commander Lee, you need to hear this, he said, placing the device on the table. I've been monitoring the alien fleet communications. They're in serious trouble. The device translated the alien voices into English. What came through was chaos, panicked reports, desperate calls for help, and orders being shouted over sounds of destruction. Fleet Command, this is Battle Group 7. We are under attack by unknown creatures. Our shields are failing. These things are not affected by our plasma weapons. Another voice cut in, filled with terror. Command, this is Deep Strike Squadron. The ocean creatures are attacking our underwater bases. They're tearing through our hull plating like it's paper. How are they so strong? Admiral Keth grabbed the communication device with all four hands. This is Admiral Keth. Report your status. Immediately, a new voice responded, barely audible over sounds of metal being torn apart. Admiral, this is Captain Vex of the 3rd Assault Fleet. We landed our forces on the southern continent as planned, but we're being hunted by creatures we've never seen before. The voice paused as something roared in the background. When it continued, it was shaking with fear. They don't attack like animals, Admiral. They hunt like they're intelligent. They set traps. They coordinate attacks, and they're learning from our tactics. Intelligence Officer Shin pulled up his monitoring data on the holographic display. It showed the positions of alien ships around. Earth marked with red symbols indicating distress calls. The alien invasion force has been split into 7 battle groups, he explained. Each group was assigned to conquer a different continent. But within 6 hours of the containment breaches, all 7 groups started reporting casualties. Psha. Communication device crackled with more desperate voices. Admiral, this is Ground Force Commander Thek. Our land assault teams are trapped in what the humans call Australia. We thought we were fighting large lizards and jumping mammals. Instead, we found creatures that seemed to be made of living nightmares. Admiral Keth's skin had gone completely white now. Explain, Commander Thek. Sir, the creatures here hunt in organized packs. They use the terrain against us. They appear from underground tunnels we didn't know existed. And Admiral, some of them are bigger than our assault ships. Commander O stepped forward to explain. Australia has been isolated from other continents for millions of years. Evolution took a different path there. The creatures that live in the Australian wilderness are unlike anything else on Earth. Dr. Kim added more details. The electromagnetic interference from your ships also disrupted the barrier systems around what we call the Australian interior. That's several million square miles of desert and wilderness that we've never fully explored. More alien voices came through the communication device. Fleet Command, this is Northern Strike Force. The creatures in the frozen lands are even worse than the others. They hunt us through blizzards and ice storms. Our thermal sensors can't track them. They seem to be immune to cold. Admiral, this is the Ocean Assault Division. We're requesting immediate evacuation. The sea creatures are attacking our ships from below. They're dragging entire vessels underwater. These things are smart enough to target our engines and weapon systems specifically. Intelligence Officer Shin highlighted different areas on the Earth map. The alien forces are reporting similar problems worldwide. In every case, they encountered creatures that are far more intelligent and dangerous than expected. Lee Nara walked over to the communication device. Admiral, may I speak? To your field commanders? Admiral Keth nodded weakly. This is Commander Lee Nara of Earth Defense Force, she said into the device. To all alien forces currently on Earth's surface, I strongly recommend immediate retreat to your ships. A desperate voice responded immediately. Human Commander, this is Captain Vex. We're trying to retreat, but these creatures are hunting us. They're not just attacking randomly. They're preventing us from reaching our extraction points. How many casualties? Lee Nara asked. Over 60% of our ground forces are missing or confirmed dead, came the reply. The creatures seem to be treating us as an invasive species that needs to be eliminated. Dr. Kim nodded grimly. That's exactly what's happening. Earth's ecosystem has spent millions of years developing responses to invasive threats. When something new appears that doesn't belong, the predators work together to remove it. Captain Park pulled up biological data. It's called ecological balance. When an outside species threatens the existing ecosystem, the native predators unite against the common threat. Admiral Keth stared at the data in horror. You mean they're cooperating? Different species working together? Ocean predators are driving your ships toward land predators, Commander O explained. Land predators are herding your forces toward areas where flying predators can attack them. They're not just hunting you, Admiral. They're farming you. The communication device brought more reports of disaster. Admiral, the mountain creatures have surrounded our northern base. Every time we try to break out, they push us back. It's like they're playing with us. Fleet Command, the forest creatures are using psychological warfare. They make sounds that terrify our troops. Some of our soldiers have gone insane just from listening to them. Intelligence Officer Shin showed tracking data of alien ship movements. Several alien vessels have attempted to return to orbit, but they're being attacked during takeoff. The flying creatures seem to understand that preventing escape is strategically important. Lee Nara looked at Admiral Keth with something that might have been sympathy. Your invasion triggered every defensive instinct these creatures have developed over millions of years. They see your technology as a threat to their territory. But we have superior weapons, Admiral Keth protested, weakly. Our plasma cannons can destroy anything. Can they destroy something that's already survived asteroid impacts? Dr. Kim asked. These creatures' ancestors lived through events that sterilized entire continents. Their defensive capabilities evolved to handle threats much worse than energy. Weapons. Commander O pulled up combat footage from the alien forces. It showed creatures shrugging off direct hits from plasma weapons, then retaliating with devastating attacks. Your weapons heat things up, she explained. But these creatures evolved in environments with extreme temperatures. Some of them live in volcanic regions. Others live in areas so cold that your energy would feel warm to them. The communication device delivered the worst news yet. Admiral Keth, this is Science Officer Mech. We've analyzed the creatures' behavior patterns. Sir, they're not just defending territory. They're actively hunting our technology. They want our ships. Admiral Keth's 4 hands were shaking now. What do you mean? They're learning from our equipment, Admiral. The smart ones are studying our weapons and vehicles. Some have started using our own technology against us. Intelligence Officer Shin confirmed this with his monitoring data. Several alien vehicles have gone silent, but their energy signatures are still active. The creatures appear to be operating stolen alien equipment. Lee Nara placed a gentle hand on Admiral Keith's shoulder. Admiral, your species conquered 1,000 worlds. But those worlds were like Earth's zoos, safe, controlled, predictable. She gestured toward the planet below them. This is Earth's wilderness. This is where evolution has been perfecting the art of survival for 3 billion years. Your soldiers aren't fighting animals, Admiral. Admiral Keth looked at her with desperate eyes. Then what are they fighting? They're fighting evolution's masterpiece. 3 days later, Ambassador Yu Seung-hwan arrived at the orbital station. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes, the kind of person who had spent years dealing with difficult situations. He carried official documents and wore the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Admiral Keth looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 72 hours. His blue-gray skin was now almost white, and his 4 hands shook constantly. His officers stood behind him, no longer proud. Warriors, but frightened survivors who jumped at every small sound. "Ambassador," Admiral Keth said when Yu Seung-hwan entered the conference room. We need to discuss terms." Yu Seung-hwan sat down calmly and placed his documents on the table. "Of course, Admiral. I understand you wish to negotiate a withdrawal of your forces." Admiral Keth nodded quickly. "Yes, immediate withdrawal. Complete withdrawal. We want nothing more to do with this planet." The communication device on the table crackled with the latest reports from the alien forces still trapped on Earth's surface. The voices were desperate and broken. "Admiral, this is the last operational unit of the Southern Command. We're hiding in what remains of our base camp. The creatures outside they're playing with us. They could have killed us hours ago, but they're keeping us alive for some reason." Another voice cut in. "Fleet Command, this is Emergency Pod 7. We crash-landed in the ocean yesterday. Something enormous is swimming underneath us. It keeps bumping our pod, but it hasn't destroyed us yet. It's like it's deciding what to do with us." Admiral Keth looked at Ambassador Yu with pleading eyes. "They're not just hunting my soldiers anymore. They're studying them, learning from them." Intelligence Officer Shin, who had been monitoring communications around the clock, spoke up. "The creatures appear to be conducting some kind of analysis of alien technology and biology. Several units report being examined by predators before being allowed to escape." Dr. Kim nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually normal behavior for Earth's apex predators. They investigate new things in their territory to determine if they're threats, prey, or something else entirely." "What's the verdict?" Commander O asked. "Based on the attack patterns, it looks like they've classified the aliens as an invasive species that needs to be removed, but not necessarily killed," Dr. Kim replied. "They're being driven away rather than exterminated." Admiral Keth slammed one of his hands on the table. "Driven away? My best assault teams are running through forests like terrified children. My pilots are afraid to fly because things bigger than our ships are hunting them in the sky. My naval forces have abandoned the oceans entirely because creatures the size of space stations are destroying our submarines." Ambassador Yu opened his documents calmly. "Admiral, Earth's government is prepared to offer you safe passage off our planet. However, there are conditions." "Anything," Admiral Keth said immediately. "Name your terms." "First, all alien technology must be left behind," Yu Seung-hwan said. "The creatures have shown interest in studying your equipment. It would be unwise to remove their research materials." Admiral Keth nodded frantically. "Done. Keep it all." "Second, Earth must be declared off-limits to all galactic powers. No future contact, no trade negotiations, no exploration missions. Already arranged, Admiral Keth replied. I've sent messages to the Galactic Council. Earth is being classified as a Class X death world, the highest danger rating in our records. Ambassador Yu raised an eyebrow. Class X? It means a planet so dangerous that contact is forbidden under penalty of death, one of Admiral Keth's officers explained. Only 12 worlds in the galaxy have that classification. What are the other 11 like? Commander O asked with curiosity. Admiral Keth shuddered. Worlds where the ground itself is alive and eats starships. Planets where the atmosphere is made of acid that dissolves metal in seconds. Places where gravity is so strong it crushes anything that gets too close. He looked around the room with haunted eyes. But Earth is worse than all of them. Those planets are predictably deadly. Earth's dangers are intelligent. The communication device brought another report from the surface. Admiral, this is Scout Team Alpha. We've reached an extraction point, but there's a problem. The creatures they're watching us. Dozens of them. Different species working together. They're not attacking, but they're making sure we know. They could attack any time they want. Ambassador Yu made notes on his documents. The third condition is that you must broadcast a warning to any other species who might consider visiting Earth. Make it clear what happened here. That won't be a problem, Admiral Keth said bitterly. Every surviving member of my fleet will spend the rest of their lives telling stories about this planet. No one will ever want to come here again. Intelligence Officer Shin looked up from his monitoring equipment. Admiral, your ships are being allowed to reach orbit. The flying creatures are escorting them rather than attacking them. Admiral Keth's relief was visible. Thank you. Thank your planet's guardians. Tell them we understand now. Lee Nara, who had been quietly watching the negotiations, stepped forward. Admiral, before you leave, there's something you should understand. The creatures that drove away your forces, they're not Earth's guardians. Admiral Keth looked confused. What do you mean? I mean those creatures don't protect Earth, Lee. Nara explained. They protect themselves. Earth doesn't need guardians, Admiral. Earth is the guardian. She activated the holographic display one final time. It showed a view of Earth from space, blue and green and beautiful. Every creature that lives on this planet has spent millions of years learning how to survive on a world that regularly tries to kill everything on it. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, mass extinctions. Earth has thrown every possible disaster at its children. The hologram zoomed in to show various ecosystems around the planet. In each one, massive shapes moved through forests, oceans, and mountains. The creatures that survived became the ultimate predators. Not just strong or fast, but intelligent, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. Admiral Keth stood up slowly, preparing to leave. I understand now why your species has never expanded beyond this world. You're not prisoners here. You're the keepers of a cosmic prison. Ambassador Yu sealed his documents and stood as well. Admiral, there's one more thing you should know before you leave. Admiral Keth paused at the doorway. The creatures your forces encountered represent maybe 1% of Earth's total wilderness population, Yu Seung-hwan said calmly. The really dangerous ones are still sleeping. Admiral Keth stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked quickly toward his ship. Hours later, as the last alien vessel disappeared into the darkness of space, Lee Nara stood at the observation. window watching Earth turn slowly below. The red warning symbols on the monitoring displays were gradually returning to normal as the ancient predators returned to their hidden domains. Commander O joined her at the window. "Do you think they'll really stay away?" Lee Nara smiled and pointed to the dark areas on Earth's surface where no city lights shone. "After what they've seen, they'll make sure the entire galaxy stays away." In the deep forests and darker oceans below, massive shapes moved through the wilderness. Earth's true children were settling back into their eternal vigil, waiting patiently for the next threat that would dare to challenge their ancient world. And in the deepest places, where human sensors could not reach, even larger things stirred, briefly in their sleep before returning to dreams that had lasted since before the first human learned to make fire.